Hello and welcome to Geek First Sidequest, your weekly stop for video game news, reviews, and more here on the Geek First Podcast Network. I'm your host, the hero of Kavach, Dylan Musk, and I have with me the remastered Travis Snell. How you doing this evening?
Good. It's been a while. We were talking about this. I can't remember last time. I feel like this always happens because I'm on this. I'll be on the Gamescom cast, and I guess it's the end of April. Well, we're in August now. Either way, when this releases, I feel like what happens is I'll do like 2 to 3 either back to back or within close proximity, and then I'm gone for like a month and a half. And that's where it's been. There's always been these reviews and other things, but I'm excited to be back talking about some video game news.
Yeah, we have some good stuff. A couple games that you've been playing that I'm curious to hear about, and then the new side of things, a couple big remaster remake rumors that we've heard, and a rumor for, of course, the Switch 2, which has always been happening, but this one seems maybe a bit more definitive and all that. And then we're gonna have a fun topic, kind of close it out with, where IGN recently released their top 500 games of all time list. So we're gonna go through and we're gonna critique that, or maybe praise it. Maybe it's really good. I've only kind of dabbled on the list, so I'm curious to see how it is. Plus, it's like more of mathematically derived rather than like the people there right now making it objectively or quote unquote objectively. So either way, it'll be fun to go through that and just pick it apart.
And I've purposely not looked at the list because I was either waiting till you did it or if I was on the show because I wanted to have the natural. Because I haven't even like I feel all I'll say is don't know which one, but I feel like number one's a Nintendo game. That's all I'll say.
Okay.
That's what I'll go with. And I bet the top 10 has at least five's bold because that's 50%. But you know what I'm gonna say that I'm gonna say five of the games will be Nintendo. So number one's Nintendo,
Sounds
five of them. You know, so
we'll check in on that in a bit. Just a couple of quick plugs here. Lots going on in the feeds, all sorts of things, fun things releasing. We just did a really juicy After 9, kind of the Barbenheimer After 9 episode. Among other discussions, I think Star Wars Rebels I saw on the calendar. That's you guys are doing that. TMNT. Which I very quickly on the list. I saw a TMNT game on there, so shout out to TMNT crushing it over there. You guys are doing a review for that, and then the biggest thing here is that on the weekend, me, Dante, and Kirkland finally reunited to close off the Arcane rankings episode. It was 3 hours. It was very fun. I'm very happy with it. So that's up on Patreon right now. You can listen to it today. If not, I don't know. It might be a week, maybe 2, maybe more before I put it on the main feed. I haven't really decided yet. But if you want to listen to it right now, Patreon is the way to go for that. Travis, any other shout-outs from you?
No. I think that's pretty much it. August is like it's a weird kind of lighter month. It's where there's stuff more spaced out because later on we got Ahsoka, later on we got Gamescom and stuff. So there is some bigger things, but it's kind of like a big thing, and then maybe 7-8 days of nothing. But I'm excited to talk about Gamescom coming up. I'm always excited for those. But there's lots of fun stuff on the feed, so check it out when it drops. And if you're into the Saw movies, that retro's back on the feed, so there you go. But,
check that out. So let's get into it. Let's first talk about the games we've been playing. I honestly have not been playing too much. I've been having some like hand pain, which is the most terrifying thing. And it makes sense because I'm climbing, I'm working on my computer all day, and I play
Smash, catching
a ton of video games. I honestly, I don't want to. Like, I do a lot of those things that involve my hands in various technical ways. I feel like it's the fucking Switch Joy-Cons. I've been playing a lot of Tears of the Kingdom and stuff. Okay. Those controllers have always kind of sucked, and I just feel my hands not enjoying the experience of holding these things. So, not to blame Nintendo for my bodily issues over here, but I think that might be part of it, honestly.
Are you majority doing handheld, or are you doing the Joy-Cons in a Pro controller like setup thing?
I have been doing a lot of like on the go Switch playing, or even just like I'll play in bed or something. So handheld. So obviously, you have to use the Joy-Cons there. But in the last few days, I've just been only playing on the TV with the Pro controller, and that's definitely better, an improvement.
Yes.
So hopefully they feel fine right now, but I'm just been trying to take them easy. But so I've just really been playing Tears of the Kingdom, and then one other game that I kind of want to say, it's a very Kirkland centric game, so I'm going to save it for an episode with him, and I'm not too far into it yet. But I know you have 2 games that you've been playing lately. So how's that?
I actually have 3 because I kind of forgot that the last time I was on here was right before that wrestling game was going to come out, that Elite Wrestling. I never talked about on here. I never did a review because I ran out of time, and just also it wasn't too meaty. I ended up enjoying it. I took a day off and I ended up playing it for most of the weekend. It was one of these things that it's very fun, but it's a game that you can tell. I wish this came out when I was younger. It's a perfect game where it's like I feel like it's tons of fun if you have friends that own it, or like when I was a kid, like I had other friends that did watch wrestling. It was always fun to, that's always my problem. I bump into people that, we do the stream, and the wrestling games are usually always have all these layouts and they're very confusing. I'll give that to this, and that's where I might bust it out on the stream when we get there, is a situation where it's definitely more arcadey, so I think like someone else could pick it up, because I remember when you guys would be playing wrestling games, it'd be like you got to hold right trigger, hit a button, and then do this to run. Like I'm trying to explain it, and I know a couple gauntlet, but this is very much like, hey, these 4 buttons do this. This is your run button, go. So it is fun. It's just one of these things that the gameplay was really good, but the actual modes, there wasn't too much to do, and the thing that was really disappointing me was the story mode was very bare bones. It's one of these things where usually in wrestling games, you can kind of do something like, here's a perfect example, right? The first month there's like 4 months you do or something like that. And the first month, if you win this one match, you go this direction, you lose this match, you go another direction. So that's so cool. It started out great. I won this match and I go to get the title and I win the title. But then the next month, they just disregard if you won the title. Like, it doesn't say if you're champion or not. It's just very loosey-goosey of, like, just random stories happening to you. There's not much connectivity, so...
Is there an element to it where... Do you ever throw a match because you feel like the story is better if your character loses?
Yep.
Okay, so is that what it's trying to do? It's trying to make it... I guess work that even if you wanted to lose a match, it would still create the best story in that situation.
Yeah, and for me, the only reason I went and got the title, because I was just like, okay, very curious if I win the title, because no matter what wrestler you pick, they pose it as your first day. Like I played a guy who's technically executive vice president or he's a EVP of the company, but in the game they're like, oh, it's your first day here at All Elite Rest. So it's like, all right, like that's very bare bones, but fine, whatever. I get what they're doing here, and I'm like, I think they were almost wanting to lose that match, but the problem was up until I got the story, I played just a day's worth of just the gameplay, and that's probably a negative thing for me, that eventually it got to the point where it just felt too easy, and that's what I disliked the most. And with wrestling games, I will never play online, because you've never met anybody more cheesier than the wrestling community. There's people because there's this way you can time certain moves and counters. That's the biggest thing. You'll bump into guys that you can't do a single move on because these guys are expert, and they'll just counter everything you do, and you just get beat up for 5 minutes. So the online community, never fun. So that was the thing. I wanted to say, okay, what would happen if I won the title the first month? And really nothing. I won the title, and it's never mentioned again. I never defended. I just move on to the next story. And it's funny because there's weird. There's like some really fun elements where you have to, every week you have like 5 options and you can only do 3 of them. So it's like, oh, if you work out, you get better stamina, but obviously, you lose out on like maybe some money or something like that. Or there's something
like
where you
promo
can go
things.
Yeah, you can go out for lunch and build friendships and popularity. But yes, but it's that.
Do you actually go out for lunch, or is it just like
no, they give you a
like a full
cutscene
animation.
and stuff.
That's hilarious.
It's very, because the guy that was part of the wrestling game that he's a wrestler. He's one of my favorites, Kenny Omega. He was part of some of the creation there. People have described it as very kind of anime, Japanese, almost Final Fantasy cutscenes in the cheesy way, because they'll walk up, you'll be in Canada, and they'll be like, this is poutine. Your rest will be like, poutine? And the waiter's like, oh, well, a poutine is when you do fries and gravy and cheese curds. So it's like, there's some really fun like charm to it, and it's on purpose to be cheesy. I think it's one of these games that I was looking very forward to. The community's been kind of annoyed because they promised, as usual, a lot of updates coming, and there hasn't been an update since the launch in I think in June. It's only been June, I guess, but it's now we're going to August, and it's one of these things that, okay, we're kind of waiting. But yeah, it's one of these games where it's very fun. It feels like, those games where it just like feels like a couple steps below great. That's what it is, where it feels like there's some things missing, but it's also a smaller company. So it's like they're using, I'm not sure, it's like THQ Nordic. Like there's one of those, and Ukes. I'm not sure if you ever heard the brand of Ukes, but it's like these very small game developers that made like wrestling games.
THQ Nordic is like under Embracer, right? That's where that comes in.
Something like that. So it ended up being fun, but not exactly what I was hoping. Again, I've said I think I'd enjoy this game a lot more, and that's why I'm kind of hoping if we play it on the stream and it is arcadey, that's where I get my fun, because you can do stuff like there's a wrestler that has a skateboard. You can skateboard up and down the arena. There's a guy that puts his hands in his pockets to wrestle. You can just have blood everywhere. There's thumbtacks, there's glass, there's fire tables. There's a bunch of like very fun, almost kind of Bethesda like bugs, but they've made the game like very fun. Like this guy will do a backflip, and one time he kept backflipping and he did like 12 times, and then when he landed, it like KO'd him. The guy just pinned him for some like the guy didn't counter at all. It was just like very kind of endearing. Obviously, you wouldn't want that in the match, but yeah, that was my big one. But then the problem was I enjoyed that, but I went back to my WWE wrestling games because those have a lot of modes, like a really good story mode, and I love GM mode. I've talked about that before, where I love like rosters and salaries and all. This guy's holding you up for $1 million. Do I want to put him up? But he's my most popular star. What do I do? It's very much like a card game in that way. So that I think it was a good thing, but it's a bad thing when you play a game and you go, I have this other game that's kind of better, and you kind of go back into that. But it was fun for what I had it, and then
yeah. Do you think? So you mentioned that they're talking about bringing some of these patches in. Are those things that would climb up those 2 levels that you're saying it's down from being like a great game, or is it more just like, you'll have a bit more content to play with, but like overall the game's quality is probably still going to be more or less the same?
I think there's one mode that could bring up a few notches in this company. There's a match called Stadium Stampede, and they did this during COVID, where they just got a stadium and they had a team of 5, and they just fought in the stadium, and it was everywhere. Like a guy ran someone over with a golf cart, and you can do that in the game. You can get in a golf cart and like drive and hit people. So that's where it's like it's a wrestling game, but it's very. Oh, I forgot to tell you this. There's like Mario Party like mini games where they do there's a wrestler. He does these taunts and poses. He does the dance head move one where it's like he does a bunch of things, and if he's doing like this, if he's doing the single, if you don't do it, you're out. There's a maze one that has bombs in it. What else is there? And then there's a trivia one, but
Bomberman kind of style. Do you mean?
I'm not sure. It's a maze, and it's like you'll have to. All 4 of you will start at the same time, and you're walking, and you could fall down. You can hit a bomb. And it's one of those things. If you see the other guy, you go, "Oh crap! I got to go back and go the way he's going." So it's like this. Maybe
definitely looking forward to playing this. And
I'll bust out the mini games for sure. Those will be fun. But this Stadium Stampede mode, the only thing that I'm liking the sounds of it is, it's like a wrestling-esque battle royal type of mode. So that's where I feel like that would be more online fun, because one-on-one, like I said, you'll meet that guy who this is the only game he plays, and it's no fun. When you're playing with probably 9 other people, I think that kind of balances out. If there's one guy that's really good, probably might get teamed up on, or there's just lots more stuff going on. So, and wrestling games have never had a type of like a battle royal mode. Like it's not a type of like game that suits itself that. So I'm kind of interested in this sort of, okay, you're in the stadium and you have to be the last one standing. So I think it can make it up more fun notches, but I don't think anything like a full point, maybe a half point of what I see. So because the story mode too in wrestling games, like they are what they are, but I do like there's a couple of games that had a great, like you said, when sometimes you lose a match, some of them had great skill trees and great like multiple, Detroit Become Human. There's this game in 2003 called Here Comes the Pain, and that was a big one that had like multiple branching things, and it wouldn't forget stuff. So it was a good time. And other than that, I just played a little bit of Call of Duty, and then I've been still working my way through Super Mario World, because I'm the same as you, have not been playing games as much, but I'm trying to get through my Mario list before it's Wonder, right? That's the new one coming out?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll see, because as we said, August is a little lighter and September is, but...
Sorry, what is on your list? Like, what are you trying to complete before that?
I don't know why I picked Super Mario World, because it has nothing to do with it, but I picked Super Mario World, and then I was, again, I don't know why. This is more the Mario movie. It was Mario 64, Sunshine, and what was... oh, God. What's
like
the other
Galaxy,
one?
Or
was that the other one in that
World,
three... What was the one in the
3D Land?
3-pack that they sold and they stopped selling? Was it Galaxy?
Yes, Galaxy 1.
Okay. Yeah, I might replay that. Yeah, I'm not so concerned about that one. I just really want to play 64 and Sunshine. So those would be the 3. Galaxy's a bonus, but August is lighter, but I also just have a lot of just vacations, like the next 2 weeks, not to be down. Like we're going to Emily's grandma's funeral next week, and then we're going to my grandma's funeral the week after.
Wow. Yeah.
And then after that, it's like... It's Logan's birthday, and then after that we're going camping, and then after that there's Amanda and Sarah's wedding and stuff. So it's just like it's one of those next few 5 weekends. It's like there's something going on. So, but I think that's the list. Is I'd like to try it. Mario World. I've been doing good progress. It's just there's one part where I've beaten 2 missions, and the pathway's not opening up, and I'm trying not to look at a wiki or a guide because I want to know where it is. It's like in a I think it's like World 4 where it's a lot of trees. and it's very bushy, and there's like water around it. And I've beaten all the levels, but nothing's opened up. So I'm like, okay, there must be something in one of these levels back there where I got to get to. But if I play a couple more times and don't figure out, I will look at a wiki just for use of time, because I don't want to play the same level over and over again. But that's been tons of fun. I haven't played that game and I haven't completed in years. Like I don't think I completed any time in my 20s.
Beat that one actually.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, it's on this. It's on that Switch, whatever online.
I mean, I've played it a
system,
ton of times, but I feel like I always just play for a couple hours and then like dip again. But yeah. So I've never seen those ending worlds.
Yeah, and I don't know too. I feel like I've beaten it, but I don't know if it's a case of like, did I beat that with my dad and sister partnership? Because my older sister was really big into that too. So it's like I kind of wanted to put this like I want to beat it as an adult myself, and honestly for Travis with kids, I love that they have you can save at any time in the middle of a mission, because a kid could throw up and you got Bowser. It's the best thing. I know some people might be like, oh, that's not the old way. I don't care. Go beat it the old way. You can do that. I love that you can just. Today, day and age, it shouldn't have to be that you can't pause and you're just stuck there. You got the timer. I love modern gaming for that type of stuff. So
that's really nice with Nintendo Switch Online. When I'm when I'm going back to old Mario games, you bet I'm using those save states. I'm rewinding and all of that stuff. You got to do it.
Yeah. So no, that's been my month so far. So and I'm excited because Call of Duty, they have like a new season coming up soon. So we'll see what that's about. I got the Homelander DLC, which was fun, and I've liked the Temp V superhero stuff. That's been fun. And then they're dropping Nicki Minaj, they're dropping Snoop Dogg. Laura Croft is coming to Call of Duty.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so
nice.
I always something there. Yeah, oh yeah, good for them. So,
let's get into some news here. I'm gonna start with this, which was a very surprising announcement to see, but Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2 has been announced, which, very surprising because the original game came out in 2021, so pretty quick turnaround. And I'm like really into it. It seems like they're taking a lot of the lessons from that first game and making it a bit better. Obviously, the gameplay is just there are going to be good improvements there. The visuals have gotten improvement. There's like a lot of new modes. There's like full story mode and stuff like that. Ooh. And then of course new characters like Squidward, I think was a big one, and Jimmy Neutron, I think were the two kind of big new characters they were showing off here.
Yeah, lots of hype for Jimmy on my timeline. There's lots of hype.
Yeah, for him. Yeah. So obviously those are some big announcements. But yeah, what did you think about this? Like I feel like it kind of came out of left field. And I don't know if you have any interest in this, but yeah, what did you think of this announcement?
I don't know. I definitely wouldn't have interest like a full price game or even buying it. I have interest in playing it because, sorry again, when did you say the first game came out?
2021. I can't remember what month, but yeah, about 2 years ago.
I hope it's on, because I've teased this on Patreon, so you go there. But look out for the stream. We might have a segment that'll be fun, and this game might be perfect for it. I'd like to try the first one. I've heard good things, but I've never got my hands on it, and I've never jumped fully into it. So I think that's really cool. I think it's great that they're adding it. So I don't have much of opinion there. I just more had opinions I wanted to pick your brain on because I was not either one way or another. When this was announced, you said you would rather take this over like a games of service. Why is that? I'm not either way. I just thought like I get your point of like there's a sequel, but then also there's the point of like you could have a game, if it's successful, you could just keep adding to it and not charge. But what was your stance there? Because I was like, I never really thought about that. Because also we have Multiverse that just up and disappeared for the rest of the year.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's a good one to look at, and for me, there's so much potentially right about that game, but just because of the live service elements of it, it's a game that I don't really want to play that much because it's so much work to get characters, and I could just shell out a bunch of money, so maybe that's the same, but I would rather pay, and I think Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl is like a more discount title. So let's say it's $30 or $40 or something like that. I'd rather pay $30-$40, have the whole roster, have all the modes, have everything, and I can still unlock characters in the game in the fun Smash Bros way, but at least I don't feel like I have to constantly grind the game to get stuff unlocked. And then I also just feel like multiverses now, whenever it comes back, I'm sure they'll just come back with like some new content and like probably hopefully a consistent roadmap so they can keep releasing stuff, and instead of that like just months long dry spell that they had. And so I don't know how this relaunch is going to go for them, but no matter what happens, like maybe they'll change a couple mechanical things, but like that game is always going to be, it's always going to play the exact same. They're just going to add new characters, they'll add some new content. But I feel like for platform fighters, of which we've seen many of them over the years, Not too many of them, though, have had like a sequel game. And I think that is the crucial thing. I look at the timeline of this compared to Smash, and I think it's great because the original Smash came out in 1999. And then 2 years later, Melee came out, and it was all these improvements. The game was, of course, it was on a new console, but had all these improvements to it. And so I just feel like for a game like this, you're not going to get it right on the first try. I mean, Smash 64, I still love that game, but you can't even argue that the games haven't gotten just better and better with each iteration. And so I feel like that's perfect for this game, which a lot of the complaints I heard for Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, the first one, I feel like they can address those in terms of something gameplay balance and variety of characters. And I just feel like that's the right path to go for a game like this. And because of that, like I am probably going to pick this one up because I always wanted to get that first one, but then I feel like it kind of flamed out pretty quickly. I was into it in that sense that it was at a bunch of Smash tournaments. They'd do it like a side event and whatnot. So I watched a few tournaments and it was fun to watch, but I never really felt like the need to pick it up because it didn't last for too long. But I feel like going into this one, it has a lot more single player content to it. It's just going to be a better, more iterative version of that first one. Like, I feel like this is going to be a day one for me, and I am pretty excited for it now just because of the fact that it's had that time to iterate, get some things wrong, learn from their mistakes, come back with a bigger, stronger game, rather than Multiverses, which is like I enjoy Multiverses, but the controls and the floatiness and the stuff like that'll always remain the same because it's always just gonna be there's never gonna be a sequel, right? It's always just gonna be Multiverses 1. Assuming maybe they'll do a sequel at some point in the road, but it will be a long time because they already brought it down. They're doing the relaunch, that whole thing. So. Does that make sense? Is that
no? I think you sold me on that. I think the two things of like having the full roster, I didn't really think about. Obviously, even if you have to unlock stuff, it's not going to be as bad.
That's a big perk for me. I love checking out all the characters in Smash. I jump around all the time. If I'm in a tournament, obviously I'm picking like my main. Yeah. But I'm like whatever. Ultimate has like 80 characters. I've played all those characters at least a few times. I like checking out everyone, and it's just such a grind to do that in Multiverses. Where I love that in Nickelodeon, you can just buy the game, you can check out all of them immediately, and go from there.
Yeah, and also I didn't even think about because I was just thinking more about this is great. It's just you got this free to play game. It's always going to be there. They can always add stuff. You don't have to shell it out. But the opposite of that is good to shell out some money because, like you said, you can make improvements. You can take a break. Okay, you can see the natural jumps where unless, like you said, which live service games they do have different. Like obviously seasons, but they do have sequels or another ones. Like we were just talking about Call of Duty. Like there was a new Warzone, but with that game, I think it'd be a lot harder because I don't think those are nearly as popular as some of those bigger ones.
Yeah, that's definitely that's rare, and like Call of Duty is the exception because I don't know why I said Nintendo because Call of Duty has like releases every single year, and they need to have stuff, and it's so big that people will buy in no matter what. Whereas even like Fortnite, there's never been a Fortnite 2, right? Like they just say, even SPubs in the Discord chat today just posted that they're like adding Mario Kart essentially to Fortnite, just like a racing mode. And that's great and all. And for that game it works. But yeah, there'll never be a Fortnite 2 in that same way. So yeah, it's like really Call of Duty is the only one that can get away with it. And I'm sure you could point out some good counter examples. But yeah, I feel like you kind of get one shot, whereas a smaller, tighter experience like this might be a good way to go. So I'm really curious to see how this one does. I mean, that first game must have done well enough, and I think it did get quite an audience, even if people didn't stick around for a game like that because it's not live service. If enough people bought it at launch, then you're good to go and put it on deep discount. More people pick it up. Like obviously, they got a sequel and it's coming out with. And I don't think it has a release date yet, but they just announced it here. So yeah, very curious for that one. And like I said, probably a day one for me, unless it's like $80-$90. Then it might be a bit more difficult to
bad release
to swallow.
Date, right?
But yeah, I'm excited to check that one out.
Yeah, like they announced it's coming out Starfield Day,
Yeah, that would be a risky move. Yeah, same day as Spider-Man, something like that. But let's get into some of this. Well, actually, let's take our first break. We'll be right back, and then we'll talk about some of this remake remaster talk. Okay, we are back. So there was 2 kind of remake remaster rumors that happened here. None of them are really confirmed, but there's smoke, there's fire for these potentially. There's some good chatter going on. So I want to talk about this one first. So on Oblivion, Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion remake remaster. We don't know exactly where it would be. The rumor here says that it might be out next year or early 2025, saying that it's not being developed by Bethesda, but instead being developed by Virtuous Studio, who is largely a support studio. Like they even worked on Midnight Suns to an extent. I know that they released that Outer Worlds remaster, which was not a good remaster, which I think is a worrying thing actually for this pairing here. Although you could see the similarities between an Outer Worldsy style game and like a Bethesda style game. But yeah, if this is real and Oblivion is actually getting a remake or a remaster, this is one of my top 10 favorite games of all time. I love this game so very much, and I don't know if I've said this on the podcast or just to friends and stuff, but I feel like Oblivion needs a remaster more than Morrowind does, and I think it's a lot easier for them to do as well, just because it's a lot more modern than Morrowind. So I think if you're looking to remaster an Elder Scrolls game, Oblivion is the way to go. Of course, you can go for those very old games, but that would be you'd be looking at more of a remake status, where I feel like Oblivion could somehow get away with a remaster, because a lot of it is just like weird NPC interactions. The lighting in that game is shit and does not hold up whatsoever. And so when I look at it, I feel like I could see how they could easily change some things and bring that together as a remaster in a much more concise way, and then obviously pack in all the DLC. There was one huge DLC pack and then a bunch of smaller ones. You could bring those in and make that a bit more of a cohesive experience. But yeah, you are kind of a newer Bethesda fan, checked out Fallout 4, and I think that's it at this point. And then other like things that they've published, of course. But yeah, do you have any interest in an Oblivion remaster, considering that you've not even gone to Skyrim yet?
Well, I do, because I know Skyrim is this big thing where I always go back and forth of, should I play that before Elder Scrolls 6, or honestly, this is the podcast brain of like, or should I go in freshly new? So on the review, it's like, I've never played one, so I go back and forth, and maybe if that one's shit, then I'll go Skyrim. But yeah, it's one of those, I don't know where Bethesda was in my life that I kind of missed both of them. I'd always seen the Fallout titles, and that always interests me. And honestly, I don't think, other than Oblivion, I always remember that box art being at Best Buy around, like when I started working there. But obviously, until Skyrim, it wasn't really on my radar. So I'm kind of a newbie to all that. Obviously, I'll be cranking up Starfield, which is coming out very soon, so I'm very excited for that. So I think I would, because I've always heard you talk about, I've heard you make that comparison or that observation that is a bit more accessible. I feel like you always say that just because it's more of a disappointment of, you'd love to see something with Morrowind. But I wonder if there's any chance that the success of this, if it were to come out, could lead to, like you said, probably a full remake. But it's not that remakes are doing poorly right now. Like, I feel like remakes have saved Capcom. Like, they were in a really tough spot a few years ago. I'm not saying like they were going out of business, just I felt like they're having no hits. The new Resident Evil games weren't hitting. They got this great combo now. The new Res games hitting, and the remakes have been doing really well critically and financially. I think there's maybe, I'm not saying this would be a test, because I think this would sell well its own, but
it would, yeah.
I think that there is an audience for that. Either one, it's been a long time. It's not like Skyrim or other games where it's like every generation. The same way we're going to talk about one that's similar, but it's when I hear, we didn't add this to notes, but I think it was like a week or two where it's like, oh, there's rumors that Last of Us 2 is getting a remaster. It's like, who's asking for, other than nobody that's played the game, which that's fine because you will get those sales, who's asking for that remaster right now, and that's where I feel like this is one that it was not remastered to death. Maybe it got a mini one around that era to go to do system, but I don't think it did. I feel like it was just that game that came out, and that's what stood the time. So that's where I think it's kind of right for the taking, because I feel it has a lot of good track record, and it's not been done a bunch. So I think, and it might be a good holdover till I always want to say Skyrim, Elder Scrolls 6, because
which is going to be a long time away still. Yeah,
exactly, right. So I feel like this is kind of like a good appetizer. Like, okay, we know we announced this like 4 years ago. It's not really anywhere close, but here's something of the past. Even if Bethesda's not making it, kind of has that getting you ready. I would assume that because it's an older game, if they remake some things, if it's for the most part, it's going to be well received again. Kind of like when Mass Effect Trilogy came out, they didn't change too much, right? It's just spruce it up, and if you love Mass Effect, you got it. If you haven't tried it and you got it, you likely liked it. So I think it's a smart move, and it's one that I'm not sure. I imagine, even though Bethesda's not doing it, would that company, like with that would probably still be a Games Pass thing, right? Potentially.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah, it would definitely be a Games Pass thing. Yeah,
that would easily get my foot in the door there. Even if it wasn't, out of curiosity, I think I would, because I've heard a lot of things about these games, specifically more Morrowind. Like, obviously, you said the play style is always very tough, but the things you described about the actual RPG elements, always like, oh, that's very interesting. So it definitely would be one that would be on my radar, barring a double release. But I think that's one that, for some reason, I don't know why, I'd want to try that before Skyrim. Maybe because Skyrim is like, it's just this it's just this thing that's been festering for so well that I will play it before I die. But it's like, I remember the two movies I saw. It was Forrest Gump and Shawshank. Forrest Gump, I saw that, loved it, and I heard all things. Oh, it's a great movie, but I put off for so long because I watched Shawshank Redemption, which I like, but everyone describes like it's the greatest movie of all time. I watched it, okay, I like it, and that's why I kept putting Forrest Gump off. I'm like, no, I don't want to watch it. Maybe I'll just leave it there. So same thing with Skyrim. I don't want to boot up one day and be like, eh. And I don't know. Maybe it's like the further I get away too, I should probably pay it sooner because the way gaming like evolves, I should probably play it sooner because I'm one day gonna boot it up and be like, eh, what was the deal of this game? Like, it's nothing too special, but
yeah.
So
I mean, I forget if they've done a Xbox Series X upgrade for Skyrim at this point with a separate version. They like it's obviously compatible, but I don't know if they've done like, oh, here's 4K and like higher frame rates and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I mean, Oblivion, it makes a lot of sense. And you know, so the other part of this too is like, why has Bethesda's never done anything like this before? Like Skyrim, you could say is the exception, but I look at that a bit differently in the way like GTA 5. It's like it's never really been remastered. It's more just like they're keeping it modern on like these new consoles that have come out because it's such a big hit-selling game. And so I look at it in the same way with Skyrim in terms of Bethesda's justification for doing that. But if you look at like the rest of their portfolio, they've never gone back and remastered or remade an older game of theirs. But the difference now is that Xbox is the owner of them, and they can choose to do this, and that's where something like Virtuous Studio makes sense. Where like Xbox, I'm sure they would have talked to Todd and Bethesda and all this stuff, make sure everyone's happy with it. But like they could just straight up go ahead and make this without even their input in that way, right? Xbox can just go ahead and do it. It makes sense because I have to assume that part of this would be that there's no other like Elder Scrolls spin-off thing that's supposed to come out. Obviously, the Elder Scrolls Online's constantly getting updates, but this to me would be if this does get confirmed, it would show to me like, oh, they're not going to do another Blades, they're not going to do another Legends, they're not going to do any more of those weird spin-off things, and instead they want something because they know Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be probably at least another 5-6 years away, which is so sad for me. But it's just taking forever, and it's going to take a lot longer because they're still doing Starfield and DLC for that. So yeah, I think that's where this makes a lot more sense and a justification for that. And yeah, I think like Fallout 3, I guess, would make just as much sense as Oblivion. So it's an interesting choice if they chose to go for specifically Oblivion instead of Fallout 3. But then I also feel like if this does get confirmed, I feel like Fallout 3 is coming very shortly after in terms of them making that as well. We probably know the next Fallout game is a ways away because that's after Elder Scrolls 6 from Bethesda. And so that might also have spin-offs and stuff as well. And there's talks of Obsidian maybe doing a New Vegas too and whatnot.
New Vegas is what I hear all like, what not here, but just like what I feel like that comes up the most as far as what people want for remakes.
It started as just like, oh, this makes so much sense now. They're both under Xbox, but then there has actually been some rumors of potentially that's in the works at Obsidian, at least in pre-production and whatnot. So
that'd be a fun hype announcement if that ever happens, you know.
That would be very cool. So yeah, And I also, so you were commenting on like, is Skyrim a good place to jump in? I actually feel like Oblivion, this is a good time. It would be a good time for it too, because it came out like 2006, so it's not been too long, but it's been long enough. Obviously, Skyrim was the biggest game in the series by far, and Bethesda as a company is bigger by far than they were then. So there's a ton of people who are now fans of Bethesda stuff that have never played this game. And yes, it is available on Game Pass right now. You can go play it today, but it would obviously be a lot more enticing with a new coat of paint. And I feel like for someone like you, Oblivion has a much more like kind of generic fantasy, I'll say, to it, where it's like lush green forests and everything's like picturesque and bright blue skies, whereas Skyrim is much more dour and like Viking sort of themed. Okay. And so I feel like Oblivion actually, for a lot, like if you're a big fan of Lord of the Rings and that sort of fantasy, I feel like Oblivion's actually a bit of a better jumping in point. And even from like the lore perspective, I think it's literally like in the middle of the continent for the world. So it's like a good spot to like start here in Oblivion and then venture off to these other provinces, go check out Morrowind, go check out Skyrim, that sort of stuff. So yeah, I'm very, very much hoping this is the case. And I feel like while there could definitely be some issues with this remaster, I feel like it's a good one to do. Whereas, part of me not necessarily wanting them to do Morrowind is that I just don't think they would get it right. I think they would either change too much or really it's just that. It's mostly that for me. They would change too much from this game that I love. And of course my game will always be there, but I don't want people to jump into Morrowind and see this different version than I've played my whole life and I've been telling people about. But I feel like Oblivion would not have that situation for it. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say on that one. We can move on to this next one. I'll let you take this away. So Red Dead Red Dead Redemption is the other one that's rumored to be getting a remaster here. Do you think this is likely, and are you excited for this as a big Red Dead fan?
I think it is. Yeah, there's been. I sent you like the like the Charlie Day. There's not too many points, but yeah, it's like the everything that's come out and everything. I think it's the similar thing you talk about where Red Dead, like GTA 6, is still being worked on. I think that's at least. I think it's still 2025. Maybe we're lucky for next year because I like to do those fall releases, but I feel that it's going to be 2025. But I want to be surprised. But if you do that, they're going to support that for a while because now GTA Online is a big thing. I feel not that it hasn't been a big thing this last time it has, but I feel that was the first go around, and I'm very interested to see now they go, okay, this is a hit, and there's expectations with online now, not just the game. What do we do? So I think that's going to be a massive launch, and it's going to be at least 1 to 2 years. I know they probably have other teams and stuff that could work or start on things, but I just think that the next Red Dead is kind of far off, and that's not a series that they probably will do this, but unlike GTA, which GTA has been mostly just anthology stories, it's usually a new character. Maybe you bump into a side character or a same city, but it's not like you're Nico Bellic for the next 4 games. Like, no, you get Nico's story to from, and that's it. Red Dead, both games have been very tied to the certain game, so I think that they'll be smart to move forward. I just don't think that there's a Red Dead on the horizon. What are we in 2023?
It's 2018 that 2 came out, right? Yeah.
So maybe in this decade, but like near the maybe the back half of this decade, like 2028, 2029.
For some reason, I feel like it's more likely that they'll do GTA and then like a new IP, like a big new Rockstar IP, than Red Dead afterwards. I don't know why.
Or Bully. Everyone keeps wanting Bully back.
Yeah, or like ping pong table thing. But obviously, Rockstar has like a ton of different studios. But you think more we're talking about here is like the main Rockstar that's releasing GTAs and Red Deads and all that.
And that's an interesting question. I'd love to, like, because Red Dead 1, and that's also what we're talking about here, was very successful, but Red Dead 2 is even more so successful as far as the sales. I'd love to see the board conversation of, do they do what Bethesda's doing and pivot and do like a Starfield? They're new. This is the new one. Or do they do one more Red Dead? Because there is only, I think there's other Red Dead games, but as far as the Rockstar one, there's these 2. So I do believe this, though. I think it's time. And this is one that this is in my top 10. I would want to replay this because it's one of these games that the GTA games and the Red Dead games and even LA Noire, maybe they'll do a second one, that they all play relatively the same, right? Like the shooting and mechanics, it's always more the world building while you're there. And all the mechanics I feel like always like above good enough. Yeah, your character always moves a little rocky, like, you know, horse mechanics great in there, car mechanics great. Like there's all these things where maybe you don't play that for the gameplay, but it complements the story. This does sound more like just a remaster, but I think if you were to get that, because I think it's the same thing, you can download that and play that on probably PS5 or Xbox Series X, but to give it a full, we've worked out some of the bugs, we've done a little, you know, it's going to look prettier. And I think there is a whole generation that has kind of like, when we're talking about me with, you know, Bethesda, has probably just played the second Red Dead Redemption, you know, with Arthur Morgan, I think, and it kind of works. So that game's a prequel and leads into Arthur's story, so kind of you break that up. So this is one that I think I would pick up because obviously, like I said, I'm a big fan, but it's just been a long time. It's a game that I feel like this was when it came out when I was middle school. It's one of those because I beat it and then probably booted it right back up again to start it over. It just like had me hooked. So I feel it's a good time. I think it would sell really well. I think it's a good buffer for whatever they do next, whether it's Red Dead or new IP. And I think it's time because that Red Dead, what is that, 2008, 2009?
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure there was actually a game called just Red Dead, right?
Yes,
and then there was Red Dead Redemption. So I don't know I don't even know what that original game is in terms of
I
gameplay.
never played it.
I don't think it's open world. I think it's probably smaller scope. But yeah, I don't know when that one even came out. But it's been a long time since the original one for sure.
And plus, it would be nice too because you've never played the Red Dead Redemption games, right? I don't think.
I actually own Red Dead on 360, like the original one. And yeah, I played it for maybe, it was probably one of those ones like 4 or 5 hours and just didn't stick with me at the time. And I don't know, it's funny enough, we're talking about like Bethesda here too. I think I've like always played those open world games since I was like just a wee lad. So to go to this, it's very different. I don't know if that's what it was at the time, but that's a big blind spot for me. Both those games, I need to go back and, play 2 for the first time, but then actually beat 1. So I don't know if I'd wait for a remaster. I think I'd be fine to go back to the original one, but I'm going to say that's pretty low on my backlog list. It's on there, but it's definitely lower priority than some other stuff.
And at least I'd be curious with that one because the original Red Dead did have it online, so I'm not sure if they would like create
had
some new
zombies
servers.
thing too.
That's what I was going
you
to bring
remember
up.
that?
Yeah, the zombies would be great. There's a couple DLC items that you could bring into that. It's just like the total package. So I think they could get a good penny off of that if they really do it right. And like I said, I think there's been enough time where I did really like Red Dead 2 as far as the mechanics in the world. I had issues with the story and some of the things, so it didn't hit them. And even Kirkland was a big fan, and I don't think he finished the second game. I know it's like a Kirkland meme, but that was one where I remember he was like me, looking very, very forward to it. And I think he had the same thing with me. We're like, oh, I'm just not loving it. And there's so many people that still refer to like, man, Red Dead 2, one of the best games. Where I'm like, oh man, like I don't think I need to replay that one, but it's just I'd never got that feeling. So I'd love to get back to the Red Dead that would really captured my spirit.
Is there a part of you that's worried though, because they recently have released this GTA trilogy remaster remake thing, which was I guess San Andreas, Vice City, and I forget what the third game was in there, but it was just like completely botched. Like visually, it looked like garbage. It had major issues and stuff like that. Like that game was. That was honestly one of the most like disappointing remasters because I was like, oh, I'm definitely gonna pick this up. Like, it's some 3 of the greatest games of all time bundled in, but it was not well done. It was clearly just shit out. And so I guess I'm a bit worried if they get the same studio that did that, but also just the fact that they were okay to release that, like as Rockstar is the bigger company over top of everything, makes me a bit worried for the quality of what we get here. I have to imagine that a 360 era thing would be a lot easier to get right. And if you're only doing one game instead of a trilogy, obviously the mathematics there, that's hopefully a little less time and you're dealing with more modern consoles in which you're probably, as you mentioned, like I guarantee you Red Dead Redemption is backwards compatible on Series X right now, probably. Maybe not. Actually, I don't know. I wonder if that's on PS5, if you could go back to that. That might be a step too far. I'm not too sure. I'm sure there was like a PS4 remaster, but anyway, get in the weeds there. But yeah, is that a worrying thing to you, that trilogy that released?
The only thing that I think could be a positive is the fact that it's one game versus the 3. That's the thing where the 3 games, they could have spread themselves too thin with, especially you saying it being an older generation. It's like 3 games and, some other bugs or things, not bugs, but just things you have to work around, right? Because it's not the current update. And there's something, I don't know why, with both the Red Deads, it's weird because I feel that GTA has a very big following, a very critically success, but I think the Red Deads kind of have like this the redemption games, I'll say, I don't know about the first one, but those two have like this very prestige feeling around them both. The first one and the second one got a lot of Game of the Year. So I feel, and hopefully just the other thing, that hopefully they would look at the critiques of that and go, okay, we can't really let that happen again. We maybe go away with one, but let's not go that route. Or they could just be money grabbing and go, if this is good enough, release it. But I would have faith that this one would be a bit better just because one game, a bit more current, and like I said, a bit more nostalgia. Where other than San Andreas, those other games were important, but I don't think they're as important as 4 and 5. I think both of those GTA games stand along. Like, I know people don't talk about 4 enough, but I think 4 really set them up for what 5 was going to be. That was really laying the groundwork of, okay, what we're going to do. I think they had like an online, but it was very like minuscule as well too.
I
don't
even remember the online of that, actually.
I think it was something, but it was very, very weak. But it was like, okay, you see what they're cooking here. So I'd have faith that this one would go better.
All right. How about with that, we just move on to this next bit of news then, which is that the Switch 2, of course, has been rumored, talked about forever.
Switch
and
U.
honestly, I don't really bring it up too much on Sidequest, but this time, this feels like a bit more juice to it, maybe a bit more believability. So I thought this would be good to bring in here. But yeah, the latest rumor is that the Switch 2 or the Switch follow-up console is set to be coming out in the second half of 2024. Apparently dev kits are now with certain studios. That's always a sure sign that they're doing this kind of thing. We don't really know much information on this yet. One thing we do know is that they're going back to LCD screens for this. So it seems like that Switch OLED version is not something that they would be carrying forward, which for me is definitely a disappointment because that's just a full-on upgrade, but I guess, then that adds additional cost and all that sort of thing. We don't have an answer as to whether or not this is backwards compatible, although I feel like they have to make this Switch 2 console fully backwards compatible with the Switch console, especially because they're still releasing things now, and even something like the fact that they're doing like the Batman remaster stuff and dropping that on Switch now, that timing would seem so weird to me if it weren't for it being backwards compatible. If not, I feel like something like that, just save it for Switch 2 at this point. But the fact that they're still releasing so much stuff and it doesn't seem like here's our last swan song game, but they're still releasing a bunch of big things. I feel like it's got to be backwards compatible. And so I don't know what that means for if there's like increased playability on some of those other games, like, Ultimate Alliance 3. I'd love to see, a little more frame rate going on there if it's backwards compatible. But yeah, how do you feel about this rumor here?
Well, this comes down to, we've covered Nintendo for all these years, and we always say, oh, Nintendo's going to do what they want to do, right? We talked about this a while back where I think you and me were both on the camp of, I don't feel like this has to happen anytime soon, but there's enough good people and good sources now saying, hey, this is looking at least next year's the goal. Maybe it doesn't hit it, but next year's the goal. And like you said, dev kits are out. So I don't know why the Switch is still selling great. I think there's still juice in it. I think it's a console where we talk about Xbox and I think PS5 and those console generations later where people are looking at, okay, let's see what Unreal Engine 5's like and what can you do here and how big of open world can you have and how many skill trees and how many branching storylines. I don't think that's what the charm is for the Nintendo Switch console. I think there's multiple charms, but I don't think people are buying. That to me has definitely garnered that is the family console. That is the kid console, not in a bad way, but just in the way that when we talk about when we were kids, everybody in middle school, like Xbox 360, that was the game, right? Where I think Switch is like PlayStation, they have that, but I feel like they have PlayStation because their dad has that or their older brother has that. I feel that middle school, high school, like there's a lot of Nintendo going on. Even elementary, there's a lot of Nintendo going on. And the only reason just because sales, and I just know that my nieces and nephew on Emily's side, two of them have Switches, and they're both, I think the oldest one is like grade 4, 3-ish or stuff like that. Like it's hit that zeitgeist. So it's one of these things of it's just the PTSD of, I bought the Wii U, and it's that thing of they stopped a good thing while it was happening, and it was great that they had 1080 and they had all these things, but the Wii U just like died a very painful death, and that was a bad era, but then got the Switch. So I'm not going to discount whatever they do, because I remember I discounted the Switch and I was completely wrong on there because I was like, I don't know, I didn't think the reveal was good. I was very questioning all this stuff. So whatever they reveal, I'm going to hold my tongue. I just question of why the backwards compatibility. If you would have asked me before, I would have said no, but there's just been too many rumors for me to say no, from people saying that it's going to happen, just because in the past, that's never been their bag, right? They've always left it in the past, and they bring back games and resell them, make more money,
That's not the case, though. I mean, GameCube was backwards compatible on the Wii. The Wii was backwards compatible on the Wii U.
Yeah,
the Game Boy Advance was backwards compatible to the DS. So it's not across the board, but I think it's happened enough that it's definitely something that I'm open to doing if it makes sense. I'm sure the tech is a big side of it, but for me, a big thing with the Switch is that I feel like there's no way for them to go back right now, at least, to here's our home console, here's our handheld console, and so they're going to keep that Switch form factor, and because of that, just makes too much sense to be backwards compatible in that way. And it's just, I don't know if it's a stronger dock or just stronger tech inside of the Switch. Hopefully maybe a little bit bigger screen. Unfortunately, the OLED. Hopefully the OLED's like a version you can get at launch rather than having to wait 3 or 4 years for it. I would love for a Joy-Con like remaster, obviously, especially after my hand pain situation, but I don't think they're going to do that either. I think the old Joy-Cons are going to work just the same on this new one, and maybe they'll have like a newer, slightly enhanced version or something, but I think they can't get too far away from that, because then that ruins that backwards compatibility thing. And yeah, I also look at the base they've established with Nintendo Switch Online here and all these virtual console things. Yeah, I just feel like they want the transition to be as easy as possible, and they know that a ton of people who don't have a Switch yet are going to buy into this new one. But then there's also going to be tons and tons and tons and tons of people who already have a Switch or will happily upgrade to the newer, stronger model. And I don't think it'll... Yeah, I guess the when they start introducing exclusive games is when it becomes interesting, of like if they launch it day one and you can only get this new Mario game, new Mario Odyssey 2 on this new Switch. I guess that will be the situation there. But yeah, I feel like it's got to be at least backwards compatible.
Yeah, you make a good point. I didn't really count like Wii and Wii U. I should. It's different consoles, but I was like, okay, it's the name and stuff. But I kind of forgot because I even put in GameCube games in the Wii. So I guess it has happened. It's just a little less than, and obviously, if they were to have all of them, that would be great. That would be fantastic. You do kind of maybe lose. I don't know if you. I was wondering if you just lose some of that urgency because, like you said, you have to feel that would update and get that. But do you lose some of that if like people had that argument the PS5, right? If you kind of get games that are both, if it's similar, and if it goes into like, oh, people are really happy with their Switch, people are really happy with their PS4, I can just wait and I can wait and wait, and the PS5 is still doing very well, but it's not doing what the PS4 did, right? It's one of these things where, and that was also because they didn't have the console, so we'll see when that's all said and done. But there's pros and cons to it, but either way, we're getting this thing. I don't know. For me, as far as a purchase, I just have to see what is new about it. What is the reason other than always, to me, I, as usual, completely 100% disagree with what Phil Spencer says about this topic, but it's the games. If Smash comes out, if Marvel Ultimate Alliance 4, if that's the next Luigi Mansion, that's why I bought this. I bought this for Marvel Ultimate Alliance, and Luigi Mansion was coming out that October. And that's why. If those games didn't come out, I'm sure I would have got it around Smash time. I would have got it maybe for something else, but that's why. It's the games that are propelling me forward. Yep. So if I get that console reveal, let's say Luigi Mansion's a launch game, but I can still get on the regular Switch, I don't need that console. My Switch is fine. There's no wear and tear. It hasn't given me problems. I'm happy with the fidelity rate. Like, I don't play the Nintendo games needing I need the most visually stunning. No, like, if this is the peak, that it works for me. So that's where I'd be very interested, because we talked about lots with PS4, right? Where there was tons of games for the first 2 years that were both. And finally now, like, Spider-Man's not. I think there was another one, or Returnal wasn't. There was another, because God of War
Ratchet
was.
Clank was the first one, right? Which was about just a few months after the console's launch, right?
But then, like, this last God of War, that was a dual
Demon's
one, right?
Souls was a launch title exclusive.
Yeah, that was exclusive.
Yeah.
God of War, that was a dual one, right?
That was dual. Horizon
that was a dual one, right? Yeah.
Both.
Yeah, so that's where we're finally getting out of it, and that's where I'm interested to see the sales after this, even more so, because even like people like yourself, right? You're starting to look for a PS5, because we're getting those games where Death Stranding 2 will likely be that as well, right? So that's what I'm interested is, what does the Switch do, and what is the game situation? That'll be all mine, dependent on if I buy it. At some point I'll buy it, because I imagine there would be a switch over. It's just a, no pun intended. Just, I imagine, like, what is the switch over? Is it, day one, Luigi's Mansion 4, not on the old Switch, or is it going to be, slowly fed and, go down that route? So I'm very curious, because I don't think they need to do it, but sure, I'm always excited for a new console launch. That's always fun times for the podcasting wise too, to cover all that. So,
well, I think we should dedicate another episode strictly to this topic at some point and really break down, like, okay, which titles would be launch titles. We can look at Metroid Prime 4 and stuff like that, because I would also need to really see what they've done prior, because I know on like Twilight Princess was a weird game that was like on the GameCube but then also the Wii, and obviously like anything that was motion control on the Wii would have been exclusive there, but it's hard for me to just remember back in my mind and say, like, do they have these hard transitions to these new consoles? I feel like they generally do, because their consoles generally have these weird gimmicks, and then they just have the backwards compatibility as a thing. So I have to really do more of a deep dive on Nintendo to see what's going on there. But yeah, very interested. I feel like I'm probably going to pick it up, unless it's really disappointing. I'm probably a day one on this, and I don't know. I guess that really would depend then on what the game is, what that new exclusive game is, because it's obviously not Tears of the Kingdom at this point. So what is that big one? Is it Mario Odyssey 2? I feel like Metroid Prime 4 might be a bit risky for them to make it that one. I feel like you need something a bit more juicy. Yeah.
I think Odyssey 2 is a good call. I think you could do that. But at the same time, how many times have we done that too? Yeah, Donkey Kong is some, but how many times have we done that where we go, oh, what would be the games they launch with? And we've always gone back, we look at the launch titles, and they're pretty sparse for the most part. There's always like one big one, and then that's kind of it, So that's where I think, like, you got Odyssey, a couple other ones, you'd be good to go. Maybe you get the Wonderful 102 finally, make a sequel to that game. But yeah, I think like an Odyssey, and if it's not Odyssey 2, whatever that equivalent is, that's a good bet, because it's been a minute.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, how about with that, we take our last break, and then when we come back, we will look at this IGN list. Okay, we are back. I'm going to share my screen here, and we're going to go through this list. So there's really not much info here, but they said here, this is the methodology for how this top 500 list came to be. 80 historical best of all time lists published over the last 30 years are compiled and assessed. Individual rankings were scored based on a curve with bonus points for higher tiers, appearance frequency, list eligibility, and minimum data thresholds. So I take that to mean that like they might have even grabbed like here was this best top 100 games from like 2005 list, and that's like factored into this. But then obviously that would not include any game that would have released after it. So I think it's going to be a bit janky. But I think also because of that they can get some weirder older games in there along with newer stuff and not being overflooded with newer stuff. But we'll see, because I've only browsed this list and Travis has not looked through it at all. Sharing my screen here, so if you're on YouTube, you can check it out this way.
To be clear, nothing. What was the cutoff date again? You said 2015.
No. I like, as far as I know, this is published like recently, and it could include anything, even from this year. But just like I don't know, maybe not this year. Maybe I'd say like as of last year.
I thought I heard you say 2015 or 5 or something. I was like, wait a second.
No, I was just saying like I feel like part of these they've grabbed so many different lists to make this amalgam list, and they might have grabbed some old lists along with newer lists. Okay. Because I know there's definitely newer things on here. I can say that for sure.
I gotta go full screen for this.
Yeah, so we're going to skip through, honestly, pretty quick to get to 100. Then when we get to 100, we'll take it a bit more seriously just because there's so many things on here. But we'll just call out things that are interesting to us. At the very bottom is The World Ends With You, which is funny. That just got a remaster recently. The first one that screams out to me is Donkey Kong Country 2, up at 493. That seems very low for this game.
Yeah, I agree.
To me. I feel like the Donkey Kong Country games are seen as some of the best games of all time. So yeah, I'm curious where number 1 is, and I have to assume Donkey Kong Country 3 is not on this list because of that.
Probably not. No. The one
but even like SingStar 2004 is 495. Like what? Like God Hand I've never heard of. Space War Joust is like an old NES game, I think. But definitely some weird picks here right off the get go.
The one that caught me was the Shadow of Mordor being above Dark Souls 2, because I feel like those Souls games were pretty well
I guess
praised.
Dark Souls 2 is kind of the what is seen as the lowest one. Okay. So the fact that it's on here probably means that all the other ones are on here, and it's that's good for FromSoft if they're able to get even one of their weaker titles on here, of course, from the Souls series. But yeah, Mordor, is that seeing you like those games? Is that a good spot for that one?
Yeah, like it's tough because it's 488. So you think about the 500 greatest video games of all time, but I think it deserves a spot on the list. So that's probably good to be in the lower tier. So.
And then I know you and Taylor are big Mario Sunshine defenders.
Way
I feel like it should be somewhat higher, but I don't think it's top 100 tier for me.
No, I wouldn't go that. No, I wouldn't go that high. Like if we're talking Nintendo games, sure, but like all time, no, I wouldn't be. I would like this a bit more to the 250, 300 area, in my opinion.
Okay.
So yeah,
we'll see. Let's keep moving along here. Ooh, Borderlands 482. That seems a bit low for me. Fire Emblem Fates. That does not deserve to be on this list at all, in my opinion. That's like one of the weakest Fire Emblem games.
Okay.
Let's keep moving on here.
PUBG. Battlegrounds.
It's on there.
Wow, okay.
Sonic the Hedgehog. Pokemon. I don't know. I could not really comment on which Pokemons are considered the best. Far Cry 4.
Yeah.
I guess people like that one out of the Far Cry games. The original Call of Duty is at 467.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I like what's up above it though. Too is the I see my man Crash up there. Crash.
Yeah, which one is this? It was
it's Warped.
I can't say the full tag. Warped.
Yeah, Warped. Yeah, I think this is a
good.
good one? Yeah, I think that this is probably right place. Even if it would have been lower, it'd be fine. I think they're quintessential games, but I don't know if they were like greatest games all time. But
yeah, Halo Reach. That's Taylor's favorite Halo game. I feel like that could be a little bit higher on this list. A little low.
Okay.
Little Big Planet's up here at 460. The second one, No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky. That's what a story.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I'm very interested to see with the NBA game if there's another NBA game on here, or if this is deemed as like the first, because you could see a lot of those on there. But yeah, Diablo 3 seems very low to me as well for how much that game gets talked about.
I
at 453.
I feel like Diablo 2 has got to be way higher, like probably in that top 50, top 100 range. Probably not the original one, but yeah, this seems a bit low for me as well. California Games, like I've just never heard of that in my life. No idea what that is, and I'm not going to research it because if we just started doing that, it would take forever.
Exactly.
Star Wars Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast. Have you played that one?
No, I haven't.
454 on that one. An NFL 2K.
Okay, so that's the first. Oh, NFL 2K. That's rare. They don't make those games anymore. So
I feel like we've actually not seen tons of Nintendo stuff so far. F-Zero's up there at 465.
It's all up the top. It's all up the top, Dylan. Yeah.
So we got Donkey Kong
and Paper
on
Mario.
Game Boy here, and Paper Mario at 444. I'd say Paper Mario feels like could be a bit higher.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. Ooh,
Prey,
okay,
look at
Prey.
There
So
you
we
go. That's
we
good.
just talked about Prey recently. So it's on the list, 436. This is the 2017 Prey, not the original Prey. I mean, obviously, for me, it's personally a lot higher.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is actually kind of fair for an all-time ranking.
I
That
think so.
game
I think it's pretty
enough. So
I think it's higher than a lot of other games that probably got a lot more like sales
Mm-hmm.
and just publicity too. So I think that's pretty good record.
Yeah.
So
far, it seems like a lot of old games.
Yeah.
A lot of I'm not seeing many things past 2010 on this list so far. Metal Gear Solid 4. What do you think about that?
you could put it like a
433.
tad higher, maybe past the 400s.
Okay. Peggle.
Battlefield 4.
I feel
don't
like
know about
Peggle should
that.
be a lot higher. Peggle's a classic.
Never played it. Never played
You
Peggle.
got to play Peggle. That's good.
Okay.
Yeah,
I feel
Battlefield
like that
4,
should be
though.
lower in my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like that.
I don't
could be
think it's
just an
better than a lot of these
omission.
games we've talked. Like when you look at that and Prey, I don't know.
Mhm.
Call of Duty, I think, yeah, to me, Call of Duty 2 actually should be higher because I guess that's the tough thing. They're taking amalgamations, right? For me, there's certain games that I also would bump because of just impact, and I feel like when that released with the original Xbox 360, that was massive. That was the game that was on every demo and the Future
Yeah.
Shop store, and I remember that was the game that people would play and go, I need to get a 360 to have these so for just influence, I think that should be higher than Battlefield 4, and Battlefield 4 to me should be like lower end of 400s in my opinion.
Yeah, I
but
feel like that one. I don't feel like Battlefield 4 doesn't even need to be on this. Like,
I agree. Yeah.
okay, moving along. A lot of Ultima games I've noticed so far,
Yeah.
actually, which is like old school RPGs. There's 3 Ultima games in a row. How does that happen? The math on that must have been so low that the odds of that could happen. Interesting. Overcooked at 418.
That should be higher.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a fun game.
Warcraft 416. Witcher 2 is up here at 411. Another Ultima
Never played
game.
it, but I feel like that's a right ranking for Witcher 2 for what people talk about. So
Mm-hmm.
I bet Witcher 3 is in a top 10. I'll say that. I'll throw that out right now.
I may have seen it high on the
Okay.
list.
Assassin's Creed 407 Brotherhood. Wow. And that's
Yeah.
like one of the weaker titles, I thought. So cool.
Right, yeah. We got Splinter Cell, the original Splinter Cell at 403. That's cool. Mega Man 402. And then Sekiro. Okay, so another From game here at 401. That seems kind of low for Sekiro, considering that
I
was like
agree.
Game of the Year winner of
Yeah.
was 2019 was that year, I think. That's kind of crazy. Final
Oh,
Fantasy 8, that's probably a bit low.
I'll hold my tongue on Mario Kart 64 being 396 because maybe there is a if the other ones are higher, then that's fine. That's fine. But I feel like that seems a little low. But again, that's more influence again on me. But
Yeah.
there is some very rigidness to that game. So
I still love that game, but I do feel like people have not necessarily turned on it, but they're just like, yeah, that game's not so great when you go back to it.
yeah,
But I disagree. Heavy Rain at 394. That's interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
The original Silent Hill at 393.
that cover.
That's a very weird game cover. Oh god. Okay, now we're getting into some juicy things here. So we got
Battlefield 1. Wow, okay. This is these
Yeah,
Battlefield picks are a little, too much for me. But the
Little
next
bizarre.
two after, yeah.
Yeah, so Super Mario 3D World at 389. That feels kind of low for me. And then Smash 4. This makes me curious if all the other Smash games are on this list.
They gotta be.
Because this
They
has to be
gotta
the
be.
lowest of the Smash games. I mean, at
I think
least
that's a good
Melee and
placement for
Ultimate
it.
have to be on this list, but hopefully all of them are.
And I think that's a good placement for it.
yeah, I
If
think
Smash
so too,
Wii U was the only Smash game that existed, everyone would love it, but it's not. It has it's always the bottom of everyone's list. So I think that's good. I think all the other three will be ahead of it.
I really love to see Geometry Wars. Here's one of my favorite indie games. Could be a bit higher, but I think this is probably a fair placement for it, all things considered. Oh, okay. Super Mario Bros. 2. Now, when you were playing through your Super Mario games, did you play that one, or did you?
No, I jumped right to World
You went
because
right
those
to World,
games,
okay.
I want to play them again, but I feel like those ones I have played, and even World, it doesn't have a story, but it just has that bigger, grandiose world, has a bit more
just updated look to it. It's like what I think of when I think of Mario right away. When I go to it, it's either that or the N64, the first one. So those are the two things. So that's where I jumped over those two because it's just, okay, I'll maybe get back to those one day. But the world just has a bit more variety to it.
Yeah, I mean, I love 2. I think it's great, but I feel like it's got to be at least the lowest ranking out of those original 4 games. And then if you're factoring like new Super Mario Bros. Games, those ones could be lower, of course. What is your reaction to Syndicate, perhaps?
Yeah, what is the Syndicate? We're going to find out, but that is an interesting title. Is that a building he's looking at or like a gun that he's sniffing the smoke out of?
I thought it was a gun, but
that's what I thought
looks
too.
Like a building in a little bit, because I think there's another building over here. Shout out to Syndicate.
We'll return to that one day. One day we'll come back to Syndicate.
Another fucking Ultimate game. This is wild to me. CS:GO at 376. That feels super low for me.
I agree.
That should be like in the
200s at least.
Yeah. But you know, you don't got room for anything else when you're dealing with all these Ultimate games.
No, the rap. That's too high.
That's definitely too high. This is also the 3rd Bomberman game I've seen so far, which is surprising to me.
Critics love
Isaac.
Bomberman.
Oh, actually, I guess because Binding of Isaac Rebirth is definitely the better one, so I'm curious to see.
Okay.
That better be like top 100 status. That's one of the greatest games ever made. But this seems fine for original Binding of Isaac. Some of these like old games, like the SNES ones, like just the box art, you can just tell it's an old game. It's like, it just stands out. Dark Souls 3, probably fair for like the general consensus, but that's my favorite. Fable, that's too low for Fable.
That's too low. 387? No.
That should be in the 200s.
Over Mule at least. I don't know what Mule
Over
is.
Mule,
But...
at least it's better than Track and Field.
Yeah.
Dragon Quest Builders 2, I'm really surprised to see that on here. Nidhogg as well. That's a tiny little indie game. That's kind of interesting.
Nidhogg.
We're starting to see some fighting games here. Virtual Fighter 2 Final Fight. Oh, The Last Guardian.
Now that's why I never played. I never. So who knows? It was like when my first Travs told you, where I kept saying this game was gonna bomb, and it did financially. So I was always like my first. Okay, I can tell you some stuff about video games because everyone kept talking about this game. It was like the second coming of Jesus, and it was not. And I'm just very surprised. One day I will play it, but I've never had any interest in it. 359. That's big, but up above it, I see a game that I'm quite happy about being on there. So.
Oh, in the upper list, are you talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, quickly, Mother 3, I mean, interesting one because I feel like it's so niche and obviously never localized in English, so it's obviously you're not going to have as many people playing it. It does feel low, but then also because like not as many lists will have had it, I'm sure it's probably a fair placement for it. But yeah, what were you reacting to up here?
Oh, Blood Money. I'm very happy to see. I could put that, maybe I'd like to see a little higher around the 300s, but very happy it's just there. And actually very surprised that Deus Ex is 352. I thought that'd be higher.
Yeah, Human, this is the newest release of the series. I wonder if one of the OG ones perhaps will be a bit higher up.
I'm thinking maybe not this one. The one before it then should be probably
I've played a little
higher.
bit of this one, but I should actually go back to it and beat it someday. But yeah, I'm curious what other Hitman games are going to make it. Like from the new trilogy in particular, since those are the ones I'm more familiar with. Like I feel like Hitman 2 would make the most sense just because it has kind of the most best levels, whereas then it gets kind of weird because they're kind of all like one game, you know, kind of bundled together, so it's kind of strange. Another Bomberman game, Stanley Parable, that's a good spot. Okay, well, already we have the... this is Hitman 2016, I think.
That's a reboot, you know, quotations reboot, but that's, the new one.
Okay, so that seems fair, I would say. It should be higher, but it seems fair. I think. You just played through it, so
yeah, I played through it. I'll always, of course, say it might be nostalgia, but with Blood Money, I really enjoyed that. Had a bit more of a story element. Where Hitman, the 2016 one, has story elements, but it's very quick, very like, oh, this is a mission. But Blood Money really did have a through line, and there's just some missions in there that are iconic. But I'm fine with it being in that order.
Another Mega Man game, but I think our first Marvel game on the list, Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Which is, as far as I know, like considered the best one in the series. So I guess that's just the peak for Marvel vs. Capcom. Kind of interesting, actually. It seems a bit low, and I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen. I don't know. I feel like we would have mentioned another Marvel thing. I don't think I've seen another Marvel thing on this list.
I don't think so. No, we'll get there.
And Star Wars X-Wing. I'm guessing that's some old NES game or something. Have you ever?
Yeah, I think I played dabbled, but. Well, there you go. Look, Marvel Capcom 2. So maybe that's the one right there.
Okay, interesting.
A lot of red on that cover. That's a lot of.
That is not a good color.
No.
Vibe right there. Hopefully
That
that's
is
some
hard
weird
to
like
digest.
special edition that has something
Yeah.
like that.
I've
Bubble
always,
Bobble is a classic, but sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and there's Super Monkey Ball too. Like we were talking about this off air. I've never dived into Marvel vs. Capcom because I don't give a shit about Capcom. So that's been never a reason to throw down money. But I'm hoping on the stream we can bust into some of these because I'm like you. I'm not the biggest fighter game in that sense, but lots of them have always had really fun rosters where you go,
Yes,
oh, that's
definitely.
really cool. So yeah, I'd love to. Hopefully in November we'll be touching some of those.
FTL, Faster Than Light. That's a good. I think that's a pretty fair spot for it. 333 on that one. One of
Never
the
heard of that
greatest
game in my
indies.
life.
You've heard me talk about Into the Breach a million times, I'm sure.
Yeah.
This is the game from before this. This is actually one of
Okay.
Briggs's like top probably 5 favorite games of all time. FTL,
Okay.
he loves it. Good like space commander sim sort of game. Batman Arkham Knight. How do you feel about that?
Shouldn't be on this list. I don't think. I think it's.
328.
I think
not
it's
even
one of those.
deserving, hey?
No, I think it's one of those games that everything it does really well is what the previous two did, and it's just that it did that well again. And it does have good story elements. That's always the tough thing with these Batman games. You gotta those 3 games for story wise. I think they're all hit very, very well. So I think the Batman games will have a lot to do with story. I personally wouldn't have put in there because you pay like there's 40% of that you're in a tank, and I don't want to I don't want to play Batman for. That's why I've never returned back to that game because I just don't want to be in that fucking tank. The Batmobile was a great idea. Driving it's fun, but so much tank combat. The final boss being tank combat. It's just it just. So I don't think it should be on there. But that does make me think that Asylum and City are on there. So
Right. What remains to be finished? 329, way too low. That's a top 100.
yeah, I've never played it, but just from what I hear, yeah.
There we go. Into the Breach. I'm surprised. I feel like generally people put FTL above Into the Breach, so I'm happy to see that, but that is clearly way too low. One of the greatest games of all time. Mario Kart 7, so that's our next Mario Kart game. Interesting. I feel like just no one ever talks about that one, so I'm even kind of surprised to see it, to be honest.
What is
with you.
Dune 2, the building of the dynasty? Is that based off of our Dune? Right?
It looks like Iraq is going on over here.
There's
so
sand. Never heard of that
I
game,
think
but
there's
cool.
some old Dune games back in the day. Alien Isolation,
This-
Splatoon 2.
Splatoon 2 and Destiny 2. You played Splatoon 2, but like even Destiny 2, I feel like these are very high, both of those two.
Splatoon 2
313,
feels... they actually feel like decent placements for me.
Even
actually think
Destiny
those
2?
I think those two are fair. If anything, Destiny
Okay.
maybe would be higher. I feel like people love that game. But another Ultima. Dead Space 2 is over here at 306. Suikoden 2 is 304. I know this is a big RPG that I have a couple friends who really love. I'm surprised to see Fable 2 on here because I thought Fable 1 would be the highest in the series, but that's at 299. We're officially in the 200s here. No, fucking Ultima, dude. What the
Ultima
hell?
all
I gotta
over,
go play some
man.
Ultima. Shovel Knight. Perfect Dark. Okay.
Far Cry 3 being this low kind of surprises me as well. I thought it'd be a little
That's
higher.
kind of the
not too much
favorite
higher,
for
but-
people in the series.
Yeah.
right? Okay, so we got the original Super Smash Bros. Here at 284. So quite a bit higher than Smash 4, and actually only 2 higher than it is Super Smash Bros. Brawl.
Oh, wait a second. I got those
interesting.
mixed up. Brawl's is the Wii one, right?
Brawl's the Wii one, yeah.
They
Smash
should
4 is the
swap
Wii U
those two.
3DS.
Yeah, they should swap those two.
Oh, you think Brawl should be the lowest?
Yeah, for sure.
Why is that? Subspace
just-
Emissary? Come on, Subspace.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that.
Snake?
I take it back.
Snake's not on Smash 4.
But look what it's above. It's above the regular Smash as well.
Yeah, that's not right to me, but it's
Swap those two. You Subspace. I'll give you. I just feel like it's the. I won't say clunky. It's not clunky, but it's just not the. It doesn't feel as good as the other ones. Even the N64 one, like it feels good for where it is. But hey,
I guess because they're so close, I'm okay with it. It's like okay, they were essentially tied when you're looking at 500. Like they're so close.
Yeah.
WarioWare, F-Zero.
Nice,
So we actually have a
nice.
bunch of Nintendo stuff here. I think these are fair placements for these games. Really solid Nintendo titles.
Surprise Warrior is this high. 280 Star Fox. Way too low. Oh wait, is that the 60? No, that's not the 64 one. I take it back.
That's not. Yeah. Do you think we'll see that one above that? Hopefully.
We better. That is the peak. That's the peak Star Fox to me. So Pokemon Go. Jeez
271.
Louise.
That's too high. That should be like in the 400s, I think.
Yeah, it deserves a mention, but
Yeah. Papers, Please. I'm happy to see it this high. 273. That's just cool. I like that. Fallout, the original Fallout at 275. That's interesting. Ooh, I think this is our first Zelda game, Link's Awakening, at 270. I don't know if that feels low or high or
Feels low
what
to me.
for me. Maybe a bit. I think it's fair actually for Zelda. I don't know if Zelda's. I'm curious which ones are just not on this list though, because I don't know if we have room for all like 15, 18, whatever it is of those games. We got Super Mario RPG here at 266.
I think that's right. I'm surprised it's that high. Not surprised just because I feel it doesn't get talked about as much as other ones. But box art is fantastic. But yeah, I'm happy with that placement. That works for me.
Yeah. Animal Crossing New Horizons at 262. That seems accurate.
Whoa,
First Tomb Raider
Raider
remake at 256.
Almost in the halfway mark. That's impressive. I wouldn't have put it there, but
Modern Warfare 2 and 255. That feels low. That feels
yeah,
low
for
how much
that
love people have for
generation,
that.
yeah. Her Story and Firewatch, Warcraft.
Oh,
Duke
Dragon Quest
Nukem.
8. This is the one that I've been playing recently. I can't comment yet. I'm not far enough, but that's a solid game. Let's see. Banjo-Kazooie, 237.
Yeah. I would actually put that 200, to be honest.
Could be a little bit higher. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was a great game of its time. So
Mm-hmm. Doom
Mass
2.
Effect 3. So I imagine we'll see 1 and 2 above it.
Definitely. That's maybe even like kind of a bit high for Mass Effect 3, considering that people are just like, oh, shitty ending, that kind
Controversial,
of thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Original Diablo's at 229. I'm kind of surprised to see that, and especially so much higher than Diablo 3, because I definitely expected Diablo 2 to be above it, but yeah. Half-Life Alyx, probably one of, if not the only VR game on this list, I imagine. So that's cool.
Yeah.
The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. So
There you
obviously this is
go.
my number 2 all time. I can't really be too mad about this placement though. I think that's I would love for it to be in the 200s, but I'll take it. Doom 2016 is in 222. That's
Nice. I agree with that.
yeah, that's good. Hollow Knight 217, Twilight Princess 216.
Rise of
yeah.
Tomb Raider, the sequel being above the first. I don't agree with that one.
That's very weird and controversial. Yeah. Don't agree with that.
And even though it's a smaller game, 211, I don't agree with that. That should be higher.
Gone Home. Yeah. I would have. And I love Gone Home. Edith Finch, like similar games. Edith Finch is definitely better than Gone Home, but I think they both should be in the 200s or in the 1 to 200 range.
Yeah.
All right, Animal Crossing, not the original one, but the GameCube one. I love that game as well. That seems fair.
These Assassin's Creed games are way.
There's
way
a lot of
too
them on
high.
here. Black Flag at
way too high.
203.
Cuphead seems way too low as well, in my opinion.
199. Ghost of Tsushima, 198. For a new, I think over time. Oh, I don't know, actually.
I think it'll go down over time. I think it's a
Yeah.
great game, but there's still a few things, I think, story-wise that left it for that type of game that was needed. But I think
Right.
198 is a great placement for... I agree with that one. Top 200 works for me.
Man, we got to jump into Legends at some point again.
Oh, yeah. It
missed
was a
that
good
game.
time. Yeah.
Okay, Return of the Obra Dinn, 190. That's well-deserved. It should be higher, though.
And, man, I know you're not a Mortal Kombat fan, but that cover, man, that just screams 90s cool right
Yeah,
there. You got the
that's good.
logo, the lightning, and that's the first... Look at that. Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 back-to-back at 185,
That's cool.
186. So.
Just the odds. And even like Bayonetta 1 and 2 are very close. They're only 7 games apart. Here's your Star Fox 64 at 182. Too low
Top
still?
100. I would be fine with 9. I'd be fine 90s, but I think not in the 100.
Yeah.
I just feel like that's a quintessential N64 game. I think it plays really well. It has twists. It's a game you didn't expect to have different routes, but it does. Like, yeah, that should be top 100. 90 at least.
Also, try to keep a mental note of what the newest game is, because Ghost of Tsushima 2019.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of like if we've seen something newer than that. So keep that in the back of your noggin there. Rocket League. I feel like Rocket League should be top 100 in my opinion.
I agree. Yeah.
BioShock Infinite. I wonder if this means BioShock 2 is not on the list, or
No, it's probably higher, I bet.
you think higher than Infinite? I feel like.
Well, I guess I forgot that's kind of a controversial game. Yeah. Who knows? There's been a few weird things from those. I'll say no, but I wouldn't be surprised.
We got the original Donkey Kong Country at 173. It still seems kind of low. I guess people doing these rankings are kind of underrating Donkey Kong, Spider-Man 2018 at 174. I think that's fair. Metal Gear Solid
I like
5. I
I'd
feel like
swap
that should
those,
maybe be
but-
a bit higher.
Yeah, I agree. I'd put that in the 150. But
So we got the next Mass Effect here at 171. So I feel like
Yeah.
Mass Effect 2 is probably top 25, I would say, is my prediction right off the bat here.
I'll say top 35, just to play devil's advocate.
Sounds good.
Gears 2 and Gears 1, wow.
Right next to each other, pretty much. Cool to see Psychonauts this high.
Mhm.
Fire Emblem Awakening, I think it's a good spot for that, actually. Sid Meier's Civilization 5. Also probably a fair spot, but this is definitely one of my favorites. Original Metroid should not even be on this list. You know, of course it's important, the game in history. That first game, not good. Not good. Fallout New Vegas, that's way too low. That should be top 100. That's at 157. Limbo, that's probably fair. This is okay. Here's my pocket. We got Spelunky and Dishonored 2 back to back. These are two of my top 15 games of all time. I think Dishonored 2. I think both these games should easily be top. I'll say top 75 just to be fair. But this is way too low for these games. Way too low.
Burnout 3, I don't know about that. At 148.
Just
that's
below
okay.
Spelunky. Yeah, right. Yeah, that should be way below.
Destiny, both Destiny's gone here. I just don't.
I'm surprised to see original Destiny over Destiny 2.
Yeah.
Don't people like the second one more? I don't know. This is a weird list.
I thought both of them are deemed as like they're fine and they have their community, but it clearly reviewed very well. So
I guess so. We're talking about Oblivion today. That's at 133.
there you go.
So obviously Skyrim's going to be the highest ones, which makes sense. I think this is a fair placement for the all-time ranking. Wii Sports 126.
I think that should actually be 100.
Number 100 on the dot.
Yeah, actually that'd be fine. Yeah, 100. That'd work.
Outer Wilds. No, it's way too low. I get it. Not everyone played this game. That should easily be top 25.
What's the date of that game?
Ooh.
Is that newer than Ghost?
Jeez. So
I feel like that's 2020,
2019
isn't it?
actually. It's 2019 as well. There was a new DLC,
okay.
but I'm guessing that DLC is not factored into this ranking. Hopefully that DLC would bump it up because that DLC is so good. Horizon Zero Dawn at 119. I think that should be lower. That should be below Spider-Man. That should be lower. I think it should be like a once.
Really? Below
Even 200s,
Spider-Man.
honestly. Maybe. Early 200s for me.
I'm fine with this here. I'm much more higher on that first one than maybe you are, so I would actually put that above Ghost. I think because it's just also, it was such a cool concept and work. I feel like we've seen so many games where it's blending, sci-fi and fantasy. Like a fantasy, I guess not so much fantasy, but just that idea of, the arrow, that tech, and just be very poor.
Yeah.
So
I am shocked that Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, and Halo 2 aren't in the top 100. That is shocking.
yeah, I
to me.
agree. I'm more shocked about Halo 2.
Got the original Dishonored at 110. That should easily be in the top 100. Like, below Sands of Time. Are you kidding me? Come on. I love
People
Sands
love
of
that
Time,
game,
but
man.
let's
People
be real.
love the Prince of Persia games. Sonic 2, look at that. Uncharted 4. I imagine the rest of Uncharted are top 100. So
You think so? All three of the
I think so. Maybe
not the
maybe
Vita
one.
ones,
Not the Vita ones. Maybe one won't be in there, but I
Okay.
could see it. I'll say all three.
Celeste should be top 100. It's at 102, so it's a little bit too low. So now we're into the top 100. So let's see what we got here. League of Legends. That feels actually maybe a bit too low, I would say.
Right off the bat,
Majora's
I'm mad about
Mask.
two. That should be
What do you think of
higher.
Majora's Mask.
I'll completely admit my bias. That's my favorite one, just because everyone knows me. I like the darker stuff, and I just remember playing as a kid, just being scared. Like that, when it came nighttime, that was like the closest thing I'd play at that point before Resident Evil. Like this is the young Travis years. Like man, this is like a horror game. Like this is great. But I think that and San Andreas should be top.
San Andreas should be top 50 easily.
I agree. Yeah,
Easily.
Majora's Mask, it's fine here, but personally, I would put it higher.
Yeah.
But top 100, I could see that because I feel like people always look at that as like, oh, it's not as good as a Ocarina of Time. Like it's it's fine. But San Andreas should be way, way up there, top 50.
I feel like Vice City and Left 4 Dead 2 pretty well placed at 98, 99 there. Okay. This is fucked up. Melee at 93. That is way too low. That should be easily top 40, I'll say. Top
I think top
50?
25.
I would go with Melee.
I mean, this is my number one, obviously, but
yeah.
93, that's fucked up. Halo 3 as well. These are both in my top 5 all time, and they're at 92, 93. That's I can't even cope with that. Tell me about Arkham Asylum while I reel.
I'm fine with that being top 100, especially because I think ask me again when we get to City, because that is where I'll kind of think about if that City to me should be top 50, Halo should be top 50, Smash should be 25, and I imagine Ultimate should be to me a top 15 at least, just for what it did.
Yeah, we'll see. Because that would be the newest game on the list if we were to, well, actually, no, Ultimate's 2018, so that should be on here for sure. Stardew Valley, that feels like way too low, 86. I feel like that should be in the top 50 probably. Braid,
Assassin's Creed, here. That's too many dude bros putting it up there. I know Taylor loves these games, but I don't think Assassin's Creed 2 is top 100.
We got the SimCity and SimCity 2000 back to back here, 89, 90, maybe a bit too high. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I feel like this one's tricky because now it's just getting more and more courses as the weeks go by. I feel like that should just kind of climb because of that, but it's hard to say when the ranking was. Either way, though, I feel like this is maybe a bit too low. Like even just in the 70s, I feel like would be a bit more fair for it.
So do you think Double Dash is in this list? Higher than this? Because we didn't see Double Dash. To me, if the original Mario Kart's on here, Double Dash has to be on here. And I feel like so many people refer to that as their favorite one. Was the original Mario Kart on here? It was, remember? Or sorry, not original. 64 was on there. The original was on the NES or on the very first one. Yeah, the SNES. So I think Double Dash will be on here. That's my guess.
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
If Double Dash is above Melee, I'm going to flip this table that I'm recording. Earthbound at 82 kind of feels low. Three Houses, 83. That seems fair, actually. I'll give them that. Nier Automata, that might be slightly too low, but I think it's fine. Mario Galaxy 2, what do you think about that? I've never actually played that one.
Me either, because I didn't love the motion controls, man. It's that's kept me away from those games.
Overwatch at 76. That's kind of funny because there's a character in the game called Soldier 76, so I'm happy with it for that reason. Okay, the original Mario Galaxy is 3 slots above Galaxy 2. That seems kind of fair to bundle them together. GTA 4 at 72. That should be, 50. I think, a little bit higher. A little bit higher, but I think it's okay. Fortnite at 74. How's that feel to you?
Lower. Top 100, but lower.
It probably deserves it.
Yeah.
So it looks like we got the original Tomb Raider here. 71. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Pac-Man
I think GTA
and Miss Pac-Man right next to each other.
That's fine. Pac-Man, you could argue, could be higher. I just think GTA should be like 50 with a bullet. But we'll see.
The original Legend of Zelda at 69. Obviously important for history. That should be in the 200s or 300s, I think.
Yeah, that's the thing. You just don't know. Yeah, you just don't know what is influence. Because I would say for if I factor in influence, definitely top 100 then. But for game quality, maybe not. But influence, that was very important for obviously the history of gaming.
Yeah, interesting to see Eco this high, 68. Shadow Colossus has got to be one of the top dogs, I would imagine.
Oh yeah,
so this makes sense. Undertale at 70 actually feels pretty low for me. I mean, I personally not a huge fan necessarily, but I feel like that seems kind of low for what is considered maybe the greatest indie game of all time. Okay. Wind Waker at 64.
Surprised I thought it'd be top 50.
Higher. Yeah.
Same as Fallout 3. Yeah, I'm surprised.
I actually think Fallout 3, that seems kind of fair. Going up here. Diablo 2 at 57. I thought that would be a bit higher than his. Last of Us Part 2 at 56.
I'm surprised. I guess that's tough. I was going to say surprised that high, but I always remember the critical community was very good on it. It was more the fans that weren't. But
yeah. Rock Band at 59. I feel like that could be still top 100, but like more in the 90 range. Definitely deserves its love there. Super Mario Odyssey, I'm not a huge fan, but I feel like this, does that seem low to me for the people ranking this? I don't know. What do you think?
It seems high to me.
Seems high, yeah.
Because I want to play it. I've heard good things, but I've never heard that it's like have to play, a must play. But man, I got two.
Here's the Travis Rowe right
Fuck,
here.
Man, my two favorite games are back. 52 Knights of the Republic.
City. I'm fine with City not being top 50. Knights of the Old Republic should be a top 50 game. That was so influential. People, not just myself, bring that up all the time when they're talking about the best RPGs. And every Star Wars game is held to this standard. I think that should, even if it was 50 or 49, that should be. It's close enough, so it's not that bad, I guess. But it should have been top 50. But yeah, those are my two right there.
Smash Ultimate got 55, too low. Melee and that
Awful.
should have been way higher.
The fact that it's not, I thought it was top 25. Awful.
I'm also surprised to see Persona 5 at 54. I feel like that would be higher. GTA 3. Wait. I thought San Andreas... Is San Andreas not 3? I thought we saw San
No,
Andreas.
it's just like
Really?
we did, but I think San Andreas is just like in a middle point, like an in-between game kind of.
Oh my... What the hell is GTA 3 all of a sudden? I'm so
Yeah.
confused by this.
That should not. 4 should be above that, but that's okay.
That's very
Journey.
weird.
I'm surprised. Journey, I guess we're top 50, but still, I think you could bump it up maybe 30-ish.
Yeah, we got Half-Life here, Silent Hill 2. Those make sense. Original StarCraft. Pokemon, the original Pokemon. Metroid Prime up here in the 40s.
Metro Prime's such a fucking good game, man. That was. Oh.
The original Super Mario Bros. At 37. Of course, influential, but if we're talking actual game, I feel like it should be
Oh god.
in the 60s maybe.
Look at 39.
Super Mario Kart.
That
the
game's
hell? That game's-
awful.
That game is awful.
It's awful because it came with like like the whatever classic that came out. And that's the first time I ever played. Me and Emily played. And we're like, this is trash. I'm not agreeing with this 50+ so far. We're getting into some
Yeah.
bad territory here. So.
I thought we already saw Animal Crossing New Horizons. Am I going crazy?
I thought we did. Yeah.
Maybe it was New Leaf. You know, it was probably New Leaf.
okay.
Which I'm kind of surprised that that's not. So this is a 2020 game. So that's currently the newest thing on the list, right?
Okay. There you go.
So we just in terms of timelines, the original
Fuck
Halo
yeah.
at 32. I don't know how that's above Halo 2. That's just confusing to me.
I feel like now when we're getting into this top 50 is more of the inspirational games because I love GoldenEye. Great game.
Not
should not be
34.
34. No, I don't know if you should put top 100. Again, if you're just talking about most inspirational, then it's okay. I get why it's there. But overall, no, that should be not even the top 100. I'd say 150. Sure, I could live with that. But I love it. But so there you go. Got Uncharted 2 at least.
Yep, at 35. Call of Duty 4 at 33 seems... It could be a little bit lower, but I'm not too mad about it. Original Portal at 31. I'm really curious if Portal 2 is going to be on this list.
Okay.
And then I'll comment on how I feel about that, I guess.
Yeah.
We got the original Dark Souls at 30.
Mhm.
Seems slightly low. Actually, Red Dead Redemption 2 at 29. That feels really high for me. For what I
People
would
love that
expect.
game. Yeah, people just like we were talking about earlier in our conversation. I feel like every time that game pops up my timeline, it's just people talking about like, man, we're so lucky. That's an epic classic. I always go, I don't think so, but yeah, I think that's definitely too high for me. But even I guess it tracks with, like I said, this generation of how they viewed it. So
Super Mario Bros. 3 at 28. So I guess World is going to be the highest 2D Mario game at this point.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably fair for the general consensus. This seems, I'll say 28 is a good number. Chrono Trigger at 27. Sure. I could see it going higher, but I'm not too mad about that. Bloodborne at 26 seems, people love Bloodborne, so that's good there. Oh, interesting. So the original Red Dead Redemption's at 21.
hell yeah.
Does that sound like a good spot for these Red Deads compared to each other at this point?
Well, no, I think Red Dead 2 should be much lower. But yeah, I'm kind of surprised Red Dead. I thought it'd be past 20. I'll say that, but maybe I'll take it back when I see past 20 now, because that's 21. And even World of Warcraft, I thought would be past 20.
Yeah, that's at 22. Also, Elder Scrolls Skyrim at 23 feels. Actually, I'll say that one's fair. Hades at 24 feels a bit high for me. I'd say more like late 30s is where that should go. Metal Gear Solid at 25. I don't know how to feel about that because I haven't played through the Metal Gear games yet in terms of comparing them to each other.
That works for me. I'm
That's
kind
decent.
of yeah.
Okay, we got Minecraft at 19.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, because now we're getting to the big dogs here. Final Fantasy 7 at 20. Doom at 18. Street Fighter 2 at 17. Shadow of the Colossus at 16. So I mean, I think Shadow of the Colossus, as far as if you ask me, that's super overrated for it. But that sounds fair for the general consensus. I'm kind of like Doom. That seems pretty high for the original Doom, actually, at 18. But again, once again, if you're talking influence, biggest or first person shooter, that's a big deal.
Yeah, that's why I think
Final Fantasy 7 though, that does feel kind of low. Actually, I would expect that to be maybe a top 10er actually, or even Minecraft 2 potentially top 10s for those ones.
Oh, see, both those, I think that's a right spot for them. I think. Yeah.
Is that the highest Final Fantasy?
I think so. I would think so.
Okay, we got 15 Portal 2. So then what was it? Portal 1 was at 31.
Yeah.
I guess that's fair. It seems decent. So here's Mass Effect 2 at 14. Didn't make it in the top 10. Super Mario World at 13.
There you go.
Super Metroid at 12. That feels actually a little bit too high. I think that should maybe be mid-20s for Super Metroid. The original BioShock at 11. So at this point, BioShock 2 just wasn't on the list at all, I guess. Unless we skip past it. But yeah, BioShock Infinite was somewhere way down there in BioShock. So that's kind of interesting. That actually seems high for BioShock. I don't know why. It seems like maybe it would have been in the 20s, but that's good job, BioShock.
Yeah, I agree with you with the 20s. I'll go there. Yeah.
We're getting into it. We're in the top 10 here. So we got GTA 5 at 10. Hard to argue with that, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
Resident Evil 4 at 9.
I agree.
Also hard to argue. Witcher 3 at 8.
Until I see the top 5. Right? I do think it's top 5, but the top 5 could be. I feel like there's the Zelda games like the Breath. Like, would Tears of the Kingdom qualify for this?
No, that's too new.
Okay, so because I know at least Breath of the Wild's up there, so that's one. And I'm looking right now to go. Right now, I have Super Mario 64, Zelda, and I think Breath of the Wild. So I said it'd be 50%. So I just need 2 more games that top 5.
Right.
And my thing, and I said number 1 be Zelda. So I'll see about Witcher. Witcher, I think for sure is top 10. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah, so Link to the Past at 7. That seems totally fair for the love that's kind of the top-down Zelda game. And then Super Mario 64 at 6 actually feels a little high somehow. Like in the top 20 for sure, but I feel like I would expect maybe people to gravitate to like a Galaxy or an Odyssey as like a higher one. But obviously those games are way down compared to this.
Yeah, I think that's an influence pick as well.
Mm-hmm. So... What any other games that you feel like we haven't seen yet that are like coming to your mind here? Obviously, this is a big kind of quiz because we're talking about all games ever. So Breath of the Wild, I think I've scrolled past this a couple times, so I have a good idea.
Okay, so Breath of the Wild's gonna be in there. Oh, I'm gonna feel dumb because I feel it's tough because Witcher 64 and Grand Theft Auto 5, like those are ones I thought could be up there. Oh boy. Like, what am I missing here as far as big games? God of War's down there, Red Dead's down there.
And I'm gonna unshare my screen so I can reveal these one at a time to you.
Okay. Let me just try and get one more.
Oh,
all the smashes are
okay,
gone.
This is interesting.
Okay,
I'll say you wouldn't guess 5 just because you won't think about it.
Okay.
But Half-Life 2, which seems fair.
That's fair.
For how people talk about it. I know that's Dante's favorite game of all time, so shout out to
that
Dante.
works.
Number 4, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time.
Oh, I should have thought of that one. Yeah.
Another Zelda game in the top 10, and that makes sense as like the first, in that same Mario 64 kind of way.
Yep.
Last of Us at number 3.
Oh, I forgot about 2.
That's the one I was like, oh yeah, you probably should have thought of that one. But...
I should have thought of that. I got a child named after that one. Yeah, I overthought it because I guess it's not a big franchise, right? It's just the 2. It is now, I guess, as a show. But that top 3 to me, that seems right place. I know you don't love it as much, but I feel like it's for what it did, how it's big, how big it got. Yeah, okay. So then 2, I need 2 to be a Nintendo game.
I guess it is technically. It's Tetris. So that was a Game Boy. Right? Where it started. So yeah,
I did it.
And then number 1 is in fact Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild, the most overrated game of all time.
Most overrated game of all time. Again, 3 Zelda games in the top 10.
Yeah,
we're talking 2 Marios in the top 15. And then fairly good mix. I don't know where the highest Xbox game is, but definitely not that top echelon.
Yeah.
I actually got to say, when it comes down to it, in the top like 20, things were pretty decent. I still feel like What was the one that stood out to me? I feel like maybe Doom, but I don't know. Once again, first-person shooter-y thing. So, other than maybe Shadow of the Colossus, which was my personal one, I feel like by the top end of this list, we're looking pretty decent. It's like Tetris at number 2. It's like, yeah, there's other games that have done more, but Tetris, as in terms of just like the most basic form of what video games are, it's like Tetris wins. It's just the most simple. Basic
And I'm kind
sort
of
game.
happy out of all these because it's another game I missed. Other than Half-Life, I've played all these top 10 games, so I got that cred going on. But
Nice.
I Breath of the Wild. I just knew Breath of the Wild is, and I love The Godfather, but it is the Godfather of video games. Where it's just every time, what's the best movie ever made? Oh, it's Godfather. What's the best video game ever made? It's Breath of the Wild. But I get it. It's one of those things that I'm on the. I still actually quite enjoy the game. It's just that it's Zelda. People, the gaming community loves that, so I'm not surprised.
I'm with you. I mean, for me, on my personal top 100 list, I have it in like the 30s or 40s or something like that. So it's definitely, it's up there, but it's not top dog. Overall, I think this list is, I don't know, it's weird. There's so many weird old games. And when I look at like some of these just weird old sports things and whatnot, it feels like they don't really have a place on there. There's like maybe too many Ultima games, maybe too many Assassin's Creed games, maybe Battlefield had like a couple too many reps. But I'm trying to think of like my personal top favorite games. I feel like most of them. Wait, what about Binding of Isaac Rebirth? Was that not on here? There was only that's actually insane to me that's not on the list at all. That's a huge miss. I'm trying to think of other ones in terms of like all-timer games. So got Dishonored 2. I guess so. The newest game we spotted was 2020.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't have anything from 2021 or 2022, of course. So hard to make a case there, but
no, I think there's some patches. I'd say like 50 to 75, and even like the maybe even like 20 to 40. There's some things, but for the most part, I think it's a good coverage. There's a couple of games in the lower tiers that I'd swap of going down 100, going up 100, but I think like you said, the top 25 is pretty nailed. Yeah. So
I'll say it's okay. I think it's an okay list. I think it could be better. It could be improved in the future, but it's decent. When you're talking about 500 games, that's a lot of games. But
I think it's a better list for the top if you look at it as more influential. When you get more to the top 50, it's more about that, like with the Tetrises and stuff. That's where I think they did a good job. So
yeah, it's the only way you can justify the original Mario Kart as being the highest Mario Kart on the list. Or I love GoldenEye as well, but like 34, come on, what are we talking about here? But yeah, that was fun to go through. I think it was Chris Balga who gave it.
Chris from Marvel Alliance. Yeah, thanks.
So I should have shouted him out earlier, but thank you, Chris, for that idea. That was fun to go through that. And I think that pretty much does it for us here today. We will be back again next week. Remember, go check out the Arcane rankings over there on Patreon. And I think that's all for today. Thank you everyone for listening. Bye-bye.